What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Surprise Jab podcast. I'm your host, Zach Ruger, and this is our pilot, our first episode. I can't believe I'm actually filming it. I had talked about starting a podcast for a while, and it was kind of one of those things you just have to go and do. So we're here, we're doing it, and let's get into what we're going to talk about today. So I'm a huge UFC fan, been involved in it since 2020, and I figured we could do some fight night previews, event previews. And as the recent event is going on tonight, we will not be exactly releasing this at a good time, but better now than never. And I'm always open to any tips on how to better podcast. I still don't have a mic yet. Going to work on getting that for the second episode. Working on a setup, maybe filming, but yeah, this should be exciting, and I'm happy to dive into it. So let's get into what really got me into podcasting. Because why would someone just want to go and start a podcast? You know, I've been working, and I've had a lot of time to drive, and I've been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman of sorts, and it's just made me think. You know, everyone is unique, and they have their own perspectives. And if even one person wants to listen to this, and it's impacting them in some sort of way, good or bad, I'm happy to be that person. All right. So we have some goals for this podcast, because what would the point of this be if we did not have goals? The first one is consistency. I hope to be consistent with this, uploading an episode a week at minimum, maybe two. I'm currently on Buzzsprout. I don't really know what other sites I could use for uploading to multiple sites such as Spotify and Apple Music, but we'll see. So let's talk into the main thing we'll be talking about on the Surprise Jab podcast, which is UFC, mixed martial arts, if anyone doesn't know. And what really got me into this was in 2019 I was sitting at home playing UFC 3, big video game nerd, and I see this ad on the video game for Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Dustin Poirier at UFC 242. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I wonder if they're showing that anywhere. I'd seen that Buffalo Wild Wings sometimes shows events, and I was like, let's check it out. So I go on, and they're showing. So I go upstairs. I ask my mom and dad, hey, can we go watch this? And we go there, and it is so fun. I remember watching the co-main, I believe it was Edson Barbosa and Paul Felder, then watching Khabib and Dustin. Such a good fight. And since then, I was kind of off on until UFC 245, Usman versus Covington 1. And I remember I went with my mom, and we watched the entire main card at Buffalo Wild Wings. It was very fun. And then 2020 began, and I am yet to miss an event. And I've done main card predictions for every single event. And I've kept track of it in a book on paper. I know, I need to move that to a spreadsheet or something. So my record all time for main card picks, so going back to 2020 when I began, is 434 and 317. That's 434 correct, 317 incorrect, which I feel is good, but I guess in hindsight I've picked 300 fights wrong, so it might not be the best, but I am excited that I've been able to keep track of it, because I used to do that with WWE events, which weren't live, they were pre-recorded, but I'd just watch them, and I'd write down all the results, like John Cena being CM Punk for some reason. And eventually I stopped watching WWE, and I got into UFC, and I feel like that happens a lot, because WWE is more fake, and UFC is more real, which is true. So, on this episode, we will be doing a Fight Night preview of tonight's event, UFC Vegas 76, Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov, taking place in Las Vegas. We'll go through the whole card, we'll cover each fight, but then I will give an official prediction for main card fights, and I guess we'll say unofficial for prelim fights. So yeah, let's not waste any time. Let's dive into it. So, starting out tonight's event, it's a very good one, might add. We actually are starting off the night. The first prelim fight is ranked heavyweight. That's right. We have number 14, Alexander Romanov, taking on number 15, Blagoy Ivanov. And these two heavyweights are not the best in my opinion. I mean, Blagoy, he's currently coming off a loss to Marcin Tybura. He's 1-3 in his last 4. He's yet to be finished or have a finish in the UFC. So, not the most impressive from Blagoy. He's a decision fighter at best. But Romanov, who he's taken on, was supposed to be the next big thing in the heavyweight division. He was 16-0 before, in August of 2022, he lost to Marcin Tybura. If anyone remembers that fight, a majority decision. I felt he won, but it didn't really matter because the next fight, they gave him Alexander Volkov, which was earlier in this year in March, and he got absolutely destroyed. I don't even know if he made it a full 2 minutes. So, he clearly could not hang with the big dogs of the division, but he's back now in a good bounce-back fight against Blagoy Ivanov. I feel we'll get him back up in the rankings. And I mean, the bottom of the heavyweight division is not the most steady. I mean, pretty much the top 10 and the bottom 5 of the top 15 at heavyweight, there is a clear skill difference. And when we get more into the top 5, it's an even bigger difference. So if I could do an unofficial prediction, I would probably go with Alexander Romanov. I feel his wrestling could give him the edge over Blagoy, and I'm hoping for a finish, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, moving on to the next fight. We have Ivana Petrovic making her debut against Luliana Carolina. Ivana, outside the UFC, a perfect 6-0. As she takes on Luliana Carolina, who's currently on a 2-fight losing streak. I feel like Luliana, she was kind of an average fighter, debuting in 2019, coming off the Contender Series. And then she got spinning back elbowed by Molly McCann, and that's pretty much what she's known for now. Then she has the Joanne Wood fight, a split decision, very, very close fight from what I remember, but without a doubt, I mean, I dove into Ivana a bit. Out of her 6 fights, 5 are finishes. So I feel that she could easily finish Luliana and get a win. Next up for the prelims, we have a personal favorite of mine, Guram Kutaladze, as he takes on Elvis Brenner. Guram, I've been waiting for Guram to fight for quite some time now, all right? And he's just been dealing with fight cancellations and unfortunate results. But he is 12-3, and he's had 2 fights in the UFC. His debut against Matus Gamrot, he won a split decision, which I think some people did not really think he won that fight. And then last year in June, he fought Damir Ismagulov, who fights in the co-main tonight, and he managed to lose a split decision this time, but I thought he won. So, Guram, I'm happy to see him. He's very technical, a very good striker. Happy to see him back. He takes on Elvis Brenner, who's had his debut earlier this year, won a split decision against Zubarat Tukhugov. Not really much to say here. I mean, these prelim fights, there's a reason they're on the prelims, but I feel Guram should show his levels against Elvis Brenner. All right, let's dive into our second women's fight of the night as we have number 6, Yana Santos in the women's bantamweight division, taking on number 9, Carol Rosa. Yana husband is Thiago Santos. When I found that out, I thought it was so random. But yeah, she used to be Yana Kunitskaya and changed her name to Santos when they got married. Yana is on a 2-fight losing streak. She got finished by Irene Aldana in 2021, and earlier this year got out-grappled and beat by Holly Holm. I'm yet to really see anything from her since I've started watching. That's been impressive. I mean, I remember when Ketlin Vieira out-grappled her, but yet from bottom position, she landed more strikes and beat her. So, not really a special fighter at all. And as for Carol Rosa, they've been trying to push her. She debuted in 2019, lost to Sarah McMahon in 2022, lost to Norma Dumont earlier this year. I'm going to go with Carol Rosa just for the sake of the division, but women's bantamweight is possibly the worst division. There is no depth. We have no surging contenders, and the belt's vacant now. So maybe if Carol or Yana can make a statement, they can bring back the excitement of the division. Right? And so we move on. 2 more fights on the prelims, this time at featherweight, as Johanderson Brito will take on Weston Wilson. Johanderson Brito, I remember watching his Contender Series fight, where I think it was an injury stoppage, or maybe it was a doctor stoppage. I can't even remember, if I'm being honest. But I remember Bill Algeo, he lost in 2022, but he's now found himself on a 2-fight win streak, both in last year, 2022. Both round 1 finishes are Andre Fili and Lucas Alexander, and he'll be taking on Weston Wilson. And I believe this is short notice. Weston is 16-7, 6'1". Wow, actually pretty tall for featherweight. I will go with Joe Henderson Brito. Just from what I've seen, he's got the takedowns, the striking. As for Weston, he's 16-7, so not the most impressive MMA record, but that's coming from someone who doesn't practice MMA. So we'll move on to our final welterweight fight. I don't know how this fight's not on the main card. All right, Kevin Lee and Rinat Fakhretdinov. Rinat Fakhretdinov. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. All right, Kevin Lee, he's been gone from the UFC now for 2 years. All right, this is his return. Last time he was in the UFC, he was dropping a decision to Daniel Rodriguez. Before that, he had lost to Charles Oliveira. That was in 2020 and 2021. Since then, I know he fought Diego Sanchez in Khabib's Eagle FC promotion, but other than that, I don't know much about him. I don't believe he's had any other fights. I don't believe Kevin Lee's been active. But before 2020, I mean, he was a staple in the UFC. He fought Tony Ferguson for the belt. He was main eventing fight nights. He was that freaking, what was it, side front kick to Gregor Giuseppe. One of the best knockouts you'll see. Right? And who do they feed him in his return to the UFC? They feed him Rinat Fakhretdinov. Rinat, 20-1, 2-0 in the UFC. 20-1 professional record. 2 fights in. He's showed levels of grappling. We're yet to see his 12 takedowns in his 2 UFC fights. Out of 30 minutes of fighting time, he has controlled 27 minutes and 11 seconds. All right? His 2 points combined have had 3 minutes. They are not been controlled by him. All right? I'm going with Rinat, but I'm very intrigued to see this fight. Of all the prelim fights, this is one I want to catch the most. Okay, Kevin Lee is saying, like, this is a new version of him, but all I can notice is that he has a giant tattoo on the entire backside of his head. I encourage everyone to go check that out. It is a very interesting sight. But Rinat by decision, because I don't know if he can finish Kevin Lee. All right. And we're here for the main card. I'm currently 64-40. 64 correct, 40 wrong for the year on my main card prediction. So we're plus 24. So if you were to take every single pick I made and bet like $1, I mean, I feel like you'd be up $24. I know that's not how odds work, but that's why I'm viewing. All right. Should we dive in? I think we are. We can talk about maybe some other stuff after we go through the main card, because I wanted to cover this fight. All right. Middleweight is where we're starting off the main card, as Bruno Ferreira takes on Nursultan Ruziboev. Bruno, 10-0. Nickname is the Hulk. If anyone remembers him, he fought on UFC 283 in January of this year, where he knocked out Gregory Rodriguez. That's right, he knocked out RoboCop in his debut. That's Gregory's nickname for anyone who does not know. He also had a round 1 knockout on the Contender Series back in September of 2022. Bruno absolutely looked amazing against Gregory. I mean, he's up against the cage, he whams a punch, and that's it. That's it. I mean, Bruno, I believe he's young. How old is Bruno? I believe he is like 30, which is pretty young for UFC terms. And he'll be taking on Nursultan Ruziboev. Nursultan Ruziboev. Can someone see, where's Nursultan from? I mean, a very unique name, without a doubt. And he boasts a very impressive record of 34 wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. I mean, talk about experience. I mean, that's nuts. He's had 23 first-round finishes. Wow. Wow, I definitely should have looked into this guy. Guess where he's from? He's from Uzbekistan, the Andajan region. He's 29, 77 inches tall. How much is 77 inches? He's 6'5". Oh man, Bruno's got his hands full. Oh man, should I pick No Suitin' Boys? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. Might have to go with No Suitin'. He sounds good, but Bruno Ferreira is undefeated, 10-0. So we're gonna lock in our pick, Bruno Ferreira, and we'll say by finish. We'll do round 1 finish because that's what he's done his whole career. So that's what we're gonna do. Bruno Ferreira is my pick. All right. Moving on to what is, I hate when they have two prospects fight each other when I know these prospects could be fighting in a fight night or even for a championship one day. But we're going to the lightweight division as Ismail Bonfim takes on Benoit Saint Denis. And if you guys don't know who these two are, they are two talented young men, all right? Ismail wins on the Contender Series. Impressive victory, gets a decision win. But his debut against Terrence McKinney at UFC 283, oh my goodness, knocks him out cold with a flying knee. That's right, I encourage everyone to go watch this. Ismail Bonfim against Terrence McKinney. Round 2, he hits him with a flying knee, and he just face plants him. McKinney is face planted. So I know for a fact Bonfim is good. He also has a brother in the UFC. But the person he's taking on, Benoit Saint Denis, 10-1 in his professional career. Is currently on a 2-fight win streak. A knockout in September of 2022 against Gabriel Miranda, where he landed 3 knockdowns. And before that, he managed to rear naked chokehold Nicholas Stolze in June of 2022 using his takedown. So he is skilled in all environments, which is why I'm going to pick Benoit Saint Denis, and I might go by submission or decision. Those are my 2 predictions. Saint Denis, I remember he fought on the UFC Paris card last year and impressed me a ton, and that's why I'm picking him, right? He also has a nice cool tattoo on his upper chest, which I believe is like a cross or something, like a circle, I don't know. But Benoit Saint Denis, I will pick you, but if Bonfim wins, I will not be surprised, all right? This is fight of the night territory, but there's so many other fights that could be fight of the night, so we'll move on this one to women's flyweight. Ariane Lipski takes on Melissa Gatto. Ariane Lipski, been in the UFC since 2019. Is she posting an impressive record? No, she's 4-5 in the UFC, 15-8 in her career. She's coming off a win. She won in March against JJ Aldrich. Before that, she was finished in round 1 by Priscilla Cachoeira. Beat Mandy Bone before that. Been finished before that. I mean, she's hit or miss. All right. As for Melissa Gatto, 8-1. She suffered her first career loss last May against Tracy Cortez. That's May of 2022, UFC 274. But Tracy Cortez is not a bad person to have your first loss to. Before that, she had knocked out Ciara Eubanks. So, Melissa Gatto, I know she is skilled. There's not much to say here. I mean, the women's fights are often the best fight you'll see or just a boring decision. All right? And I feel Melissa Gatto can bring the heat to Ariana, get a finish, and make her claim in the division. So, Melissa Gatto will be my pick. All right, and as we move into our final 3 fights of the card, this is where we get into some of the best fights of the card as well. All right? So, next up, welterweight, Max Griffin takes on Michael Morales. Michael Morales, every time I hear his name, I think of Miles Morales from the Spider-Verse films. That's another thing I was going to bring up, is we could also do movie reviews on here, movie previews as well on this podcast. I don't want it to be just an MMA podcast. I want it to be something where we can talk about anything, news events, sports events. The surprise jab, I mean, a surprise jab could even be a surprise story on today's podcast, so that's what I think I want to do with this as well. But we're focused more on Michael Morales and his fight against Max Griffin. Michael Morales is 14-0 in the UFC, and his 2 finishes in the UFC were spectacular. Beat Trevin Giles' his debut in 4 minutes, and then absolutely bludgeoned Adam Puget through 3 rounds before finally knocking him out. Michael Morales is legit. I'm picking him before I even look at Max Griffin, and I've already looked at Max Griffin. All right, I just know Morales is going to win this, all right? Or do I? Because Max Griffin's tough. Max Griffin is very tough. I mean, he's coming off a win over Tim Mean, split decision. He had a split decision. Lost to Neil Magny. He has had a knockdown. He has knocked his opponents down in his last 4 straight fights. And if you want to see him land a nasty knockout, look at the Song Kenan fight. March 2021, Brunson versus Holland Fight Night. earned him a performance bonus where he just face planted him. I mean, Max Griffin is legit, but I stand by that. I think Michael Morales is one of the future contenders here at welterweight. And welterweight has slowly become the deepest division in the UFC almost. I think it's that, bantamweight, lightweight. There's a lot of divisions you could talk about, but welterweight, without a doubt, is up there. So if I could pick what I think will happen to Michael Morales and Max Griffin in this fight, I'm going to go with a Morales finish. All right? And I'm going to say round 2. I'm going to say round 2, he lands a punch, drops him, maybe even submits him or something. But Michael Morales, ladies and gentlemen, keep his name, keep Ian Gary's name on your radar, keep Jack Della Maddalena's name. Everyone knows Hamza. People are starting to know Shavkat Rakhmonov. Welterweight is slowly having a changing of the guard, all right? And Michael Morales is one of these fighters. So, let's move on to our co-main event as Damir Ismagulov is back against Grant Dawson. These guys are ranked at lightweight. Damir is number 12, and Grant Dawson is number 15. Wow, is this a high-level matchup? Damir, 24-2. 24-2. All right. His first loss in the UFC after being in there for 4 or 5 years was Arman Tazukri, where he got out grappled. That was the game plan for Arman. He landed 9 minutes, 25 seconds of full time. He did not want to stand with Damir. And Damir has become a decision fighter. Decisions in all 5 of his UFC victories. Notable names: Guram Kudladze, Rafael Alves, Tiago Joel Alvarez. I mean, these are all legit people. All right. As for Grant Dawson, 19-1. He is just as good. He's actually yet to lose in the UFC. He had that draw against Ricky Glenn. It was such an awkward fight. But I mean, before that, I mean, the Leonard Santos fight where he was losing and won with a second left. He's Runik chokeholded Michael Trezano, got a performance bonus. On a 2-fight win streak, I mean, he submitted Jared Gordon. He submitted Mark Madsen. Grant Dawson's legit, all right? And Damir is a world-class kickboxer. He is so technical, all right? No, Arman's been the only one so far in the UFC to solve his issue. But I honestly, guys, have confidence in Grant Dawson. And I gotta spice up my picks a bit. All right, we're going with Grant Dawson. I think Grant gets it done. I think he's able to out-grapple Damir. But it's not my lock of the night. I'm not going to say trail that one with all your heart. But I am going to be rooting for Grant Dawson. Damir let me down last time against Arman. Actually, I might have picked Arman for that fight. I can't really remember. But I know that Damir is good. All right. Well, let's get into the main event. All right. UFC Vegas 76. The 76th event in the Apex. I really wish they would stop doing events in the Apex, but that's just me. Sean Strickland, Abus Magomedov. Sean is currently ranked number 7. Number 7 at middleweight, and Abus is unranked. This is a tricky fight to pick. All right, Abus has had 1 fight in the UFC. He has had 1 fight, and that was in September of 2022 in Paris, where he beat Dustin Stolfus in 19 seconds. He finished him with punches in 19 seconds. That's as much UFC footage as I have of Abus. I do know that he was knocked out in the PFL. That was 5 years ago. I don't know how reliable stuff from 5 years ago can be. I only really look at up until 2021. Nowadays, I usually go 2 years back as far as I'll go. Because fighters evolve. Fighters evolve really fast. And it's hard to stand by the results from 5 years ago compared to what they are today. Tony Ferguson can be the greatest example of that. Abus, 25-4, coming off that win over Dustin Stolfus, will take on Sean Strickland. I mean, if anyone's a big UFC fan, they know Sean Strickland. I mean, a staple in the middleweight division. He is 8-2 since his move to middleweight, and he fought a who's who back in welterweight, which was almost 10 years ago. It was in the 7-8 years ago range. I mean, he fought Santiago Ponzinibbio. He fought Kamaru Usman. He fought Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos. I mean, Sean Strickland's fought a lot of people. But it wasn't until his Jack Marshman fight in October of 2020 where he came onto people's radar. That was when he was talking to him mid-fight and was kind of going like, hey, Jack, let's go, punch him in the face. And people like that. People like the Kevin Holland-esque folks who talk to their opponents, right? He would then finish Brendan Allen, go on to beat a number of people, Fight Night wins over Uriah Hall, Jack Manson. And then we all know what happened last July when Alex Bejera knocked him out in 2.5 minutes. Right. Then he loses split decision to Jared Cannonier. I didn't really watch that fight fully. I was kind of in the car. But from what I saw, Jared seemed to be doing better. But Sean was not happy with that result. And so he would take a short-notice fight. And earlier this year, the first event of the year was Sean Strickland versus Magomedov. And he would win a 5-round decision. So, Sean coming off a win. Abus coming off of... Gosh, I don't even know how it wins. How much of a win streak is Abus Magomedov on? Let's check this. Because if we only have one fight of him to analyze, there really shouldn't be another reason why I shouldn't pick Sean Strickland, who I've been watching. So let's see what the win streak is for Abus Magomedov. His actual real name is Abusupian, but he goes by Abus. All right. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. That's right. Yep, the knockout punch to Louis Taylor was his last loss in December of 2018. He's gotten 2 finishes. Wow. He's good. He seems to be pretty good. Speaking of the PFL, I mean, their season's slowly coming to an end. I mean, I think there's one more set of contender fights August 4th or 5th or something, and then the PFL will be going on to their playoffs. But Abus is no longer in the PFL, and his second UFC fight will be main eventing. That's exciting. That's really exciting for him. So, very happy for Abus to be in the UFC. Very happy for Sean to get another fight night. But I am going to be picking Abus Magomedov. Why? I feel he'll start fast and maybe catch Sean off guard. I know for a fact Sean can get hit and get knocked out. The Oxperia fight is a testament to that. And plus, I want a new breed of contenders at middleweight. Middleweight has been stagnant of sorts. Now, I will say Jared Cannonier absolutely pummeling Marvin Vettori was a sight to behold, even though I picked Marvin to win that fight. But I mean, Paulo Costa take on Ikram Alkaserov. Obviously, I want to see Ikram win. All right, I want a new guy in there. Driscus Duplessis against Art Wicker. Will Driscus win? I don't know, but I want to see it. All right, you got Brendan Allen searching up the rankings. You got Nazardine. You got Hamzat maybe fighting at middleweight. Next weekend at UFC 290, you have Bo Nickel, who is probably the future at middleweight. Just so many guys I want to see make the jump. Because we have seen Whitaker, we've seen Cannonier, we've seen Vettori, we've seen Costa, we've seen Brunson and Strickland and Hermanson and Gastelum for so long. It's nice to see a change. So I am going to pick Abus. I am going to pick Abus to win. And we'll go with a round 1 finish just because I like round 1 finishes and find them exciting. So let's recount our picks. We're going to go with Bruno Ferreira over Nursultan Ruzabov. We'll go by knockout. Benoit Saint Denis against Ismail Bonfim. We'll go by submission. Bonfim by, Saint Denis by submission. Melissa Gatto against Ariane Lipsky. We're going to go with Melissa Gatto. We'll go by decision. Michael Morales versus Max Griffin. We're going to go with Morales by, we'll say decision. We'll say decision, Pepe. Demirs Magulov versus Grant Dawson. We'll go Grant by decision. And Sean Strickland, Abus Magomedov. Abus by round 1. Knockout. So that's the fight night in whole. I feel I should do fighter notes for some of these where I can actually dive more into them, dive more into the careers instead of just really using the UFC stats and the UFC rankings tool. But we're working on this, all right? This podcast will not grow overnight, all right? I'll improve. I'm going to work on getting a mic so I can sound much better, maybe even trying to find a more secluded spot, a room or something where I could put up some sound things. You know the stuff they have in like the Joe Rogan studio? I remember they have them in music rooms and stuff. The absorbed sounds. Yeah, maybe I could get some of those. But I'm just happy to talk about this because since 2020, I've essentially just gone over these picks by myself. Just sitting down in the basement in my head, And I was thinking, I could tell people about these. Maybe some people would be interested to hear about my picks. But I'd probably do have to give more reason than, oh, I just want a new contender at middleweight, which is why I'm picking Abus. That's how it goes. Speaking of the middleweight division, what would be next for the winner of Sean Strickland and Abus Magomedov? Well, I'm not going to say a title shot, but a title shot could be up next for them. Because as of right now, there's like 4 possibilities at middleweight. All right, you have Jared Cannonier, who is now on a 2-fight winning streak, coming off a historic performance against Marvin Vettori. You have Robert Whittaker and Dricus du Plessis, the winner of that, without a doubt, will probably be the number 1 contender. Alex Pereira is leaving the division. He's not even in the question. All right? Ikram Al-Kaserov and Paulo Costa at UFC 291. I'm hoping that happens. Hoping that fight can happen. The winner of that'll be someone of sorts who could fight next. And those are pretty much your 4 options. And the winner of Abus and Sean is probably option number 4. Probably option number 4, just because Sean's at 7. Right? But if Abus can go out there, finish Sean quickly, Pereira got a title shot off a round 1 finish of Sean Strickland. So there's no reason Abus couldn't. So I do think that Abus can make the jump, get a victory, and fight for the belt. And plus, if Sean were to beat him, finish him, Adesanya wants it. Israel Adesanya wants new contenders, right? And he wants to fight at UFC 293. He doesn't have an opponent for UFC 293. So I'm hoping he can get that. I'm hoping he can get a victory against whoever he fights. Because Adesanya, as much as I didn't like him for his stale fights with like Whittaker and Cannonier, I mean the Pereira fights are just, we'll be talking about those for a while. Super exciting fights. And that's the fight card. That's the fight card in total. I believe the prelims start at 3 p.m. Central Time today, or maybe it's either 3 or 2 Central. For Eastern, that'd probably be around 3 or 4. I'll have to double check, but that's what I saw last time I checked. Any other fights that I saw announced that I could talk about? I did notice that Henry Cejudo pulled out of his fight against Marlon Vera. You hate to see that, but I think they should do Cejudo versus Merab next year, and I think Marlon could fight Purian. But Purian doesn't want to fight until 2024. So who knows if Marlon Vera is even going to have a fight. Another pullout I saw was in the welterweight division, where Jack Della Maddalena was supposed to fight Sean Brady, and Sean Brady pulled out, I believe. So they're looking for someone to fight Jack Della Maddalena. I know Kevin Holland's thrown his name. Chris Curtis has thrown his name. Joaquin Buckley has thrown his name. So a lot of people want to fight this guy. I don't know why. Jack is very talented. I would not want to fight him. That's just me. All right? But I'm happy to see if anyone else wants to fight him. So that's all I pretty much have for today's episode. A very impromptu, not the most professional. I did kind of make a little setup down here in my studio, if you want to call the basement that. But we're going to work on getting a mic so I can sound better. Maybe even, gosh, I don't know. I kind of want to film. I did set my phone to record this just to work on posture and stuff. But as for this episode, I think we're going to end it there. We went just over 30 minutes. I'm going to try and do hour ones. But as for the starting episode, we'll end it here. I'll be back during the week. We'll cover some other topics. We'll think of some fun things to do. And we'll probably be back for a recap show either Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. So yeah, thank you guys for listening to the first episode of the Surprise Jab podcast. Don't really have a catchy slogan to leave you on, but I just hope everyone has a good day. And yeah, that'll conclude our pilot episode. Later.